finish quickly. Thanks for coming to ESSA Academy. I will open it up at the end for questions that you might have about REAP, but I will give you like the overall scope of what the grant is, what its purpose is, what you can use it for, how it can be utilized. I will say that U.S. Department of Ed actually does these allocations. We, Sheree, Sarah and I, do not come up with the allocations for REAP. They come to us. So we do not get them until the fall. Now I know that REAP, they start sending out emails. Some of you might have got an email from them about a master spreadsheet saying like, is this your current superintendent, this and that, because they do the allocations themselves. So sometimes they'll do their own reach to you outside of us. I started getting some emails last week and I was like, oh, sure, I'll change the name of the superintendent in the spreadsheet for you guys. So it's the only grant that is like direct contact from the U.S. Department of Ed down to the LEA. So you might hear from them. Like I said, I saw some of that going on last week.
You need to move?
Okay, here's an overview of REAP. The purpose of Title V, or we call it REAP, is to address the unique needs of rural school districts that frequently lack the personnel and resources needed to compete effectively for federal competitive grants and who receive formula grant allocations in too small amounts to be effective in meeting their intended purpose. The grant is non-competitive and eligibility is determined by statutes. Awards are issued annually to state agencies, which make sub-grants to the LEAs that meet eligibility requirements. So what that means is they will tell us who's getting the money, and then when we push out the GANs and we load the money and we give out the applications for it. Awards are made to all SEAs, that's State Department of Education, that apply and meet eligibility requirements. There are actually two parts of Title V. South Carolina's portion is really called the RLIS program, but for years and years we've just said REAP, right? Rural Education Program, but South Carolina's is Rural and Low Income Schools Program. It provides funds for states to sub-grant those out. RLIS funds apply more broadly and can be used for a number of purposes related to other titles of ESSA. So we're going to talk in just a minute about what that means, like the purposes that it can be used under other grants. It kind of takes on the hat of other grants as far as allowability is concerned. Okay, how do they come up with the allocations? Okay, part of it is by locale code. So to be considered rural, all schools comprising the LEA must have a school locale code of 32, 33, 41, 42, or 43, or be located in an area of the state defined as rural by a governmental agency of the state. To be considered low income, 20% or more of the children ages 5 to 17 served by the LEA must be from families with incomes below the poverty line based on data from the U.S. Census Bureau or the SAPI data. Okay, so this is kind of how they go about designating which districts are eligible to receive these types of funds. I will say that that varies from year to year. Sometimes a district might fall off. Sometimes a district might be added. I was looking at the master spreadsheet last week or the week before, and I was like, oh, I'm going to have to contact a couple districts. Some have fallen off and some are coming on. So it really just depends upon those data sets I just talked about. Okay? For Title V, it does need its own needs assessment. If you sat in on C.R. Holstein's presentation where she talked about we're going to move to the model for Title I for using the DSSR plan instead of a comprehensive needs assessment like we have been doing. We're trying to reduce the burden on the districts and let them use that for Title I. This grant does need its own needs assessment. Okay, so that will be separate and it's loaded into the related documents section of the grant. Basically, you're just telling us what are the needs associated that you want to use this funding for. I like to think of this grant as an extension. It's almost like an arm of some of the other grants that you get. So it might be like Title I might be the tree trunk and REAP is one of the limbs. Okay, it can be an extension of Title II. It might be the tree trunk and REAP is the extension of Title II. It really goes back to the goals of some of these other grants and what you're trying to do with them, just having a little more money to do it. Right, like if you're trying to do PD, Title II, you're doing certain things and you need a little more money to try to help with that, you can use your REAP money. Okay, Title III is the same way. If you're trying to support those students and you need a little more money, you can use it all in Title III. We'll talk about that in just a second. Remember that this grant actually holds to the old supplement, not supplant test. These funds are supposed to come on top of what the district already does. So you have to keep supplement, not supplant in mind. A district may not use these funds to pay for activities that in the absence of these funds would be provided with state and local funds. So we should be coming on top of what the district is already doing with the REAP money. Okay, and here we talk about the allowable use of funds. You can use this money for activities authorized under any of these grants. So if you go into the GEMS application for REAP, there will be one of the links that will give you a box for Title I, a box for Title II, a box for Title III, a box for Title IV. And if you are taking on allowability for, say, Title IV, you would write the activity in the box beside Title IV. That tells me, okay, as the reader, I understand that this is an extension of your Title IV grant, if you will. This is an extension of Title I. So as the reader, whether Sarah's reading or I'm reading, whoever's reading, we put on the allowability hat for the box that I'm reading associated with whichever grant that is. Okay, so if we're talking about Title I might see activities that look like this in REAP. This is just an example of some things that we sometimes see. Maybe a teacher incentive, professional development linked to Title I, substitute teacher. Maybe you need to send some teachers to PD and you need some substitutes to cover classes. You want to use your REAP money to do that, you can. Any kind of instructional need or supplies or technology, anything that Title I is allowable with, you can use for REAP. Okay, here's some for Title II. Maybe you need a few more stipends, or maybe you didn't have quite enough travel money in Title II, and you want to use REAP for that. You can do that. Anything allowable under Title II, you can spend REAP money on. And I give you an example here of an actual activity that I might see when I'm reading a REAP grant. Now, my team does not work with Title III, but I had Susan to come in and tell me some of the allowable activities for Title III, because it can also be an extension there. So if I ever see one, I'm reading REAP and I see, okay, it's an extension of Title III. I contact some of the other ladies in the office and I say, tell me what you think about this activity. Is it allowable? Because my team does not work with Title III. So I will ask the people who run that grant, like, what do you think of this? Because it is Title III allowed. Title IV, any of the 3 content areas, anything that you would put in safe and healthy or technology or well-rounded, you can put money into that. So technology PD or anything related to well-rounded kids activities, you can use REAP as an extension. I don't like to call it like a slush fund, but the flexibility is great with REAP. It really helps you to do whatever you need to do for those kids.
Jennifer, can I ask you, why did you, in GAPS, the last slide was talking about well-rounded? Why did you guys start why did y'all put it in GAPS to start identifying well-rounded, safe, and healthy? What was the reason for that? I'm just asking.
For Title IV?
Yes.
In Title IV, the U.S. Department of Ed asks us to pull data on expenses per district for each of the content areas.
Okay.
So like they want to know which content area does Orangeburg mainly spend their money in. Okay, well, rather than me sitting there going into gyms and trying to pull all that, it's easier when you do a claim to just tag the content area. Then we can run a report and we can say, okay, Orangeburg, this is what they typically do.
Okay.
They're very interested in how each district utilizes the funds.
Okay.
So we have to report that annually. Without that tag, we have to go in and dig and figure it out.
Yeah.
So it's just easier for us to run a report.
It is easier for us to go ahead and tag it, because it's coming from the district anyway, so.
Yeah.
I don't have it. Thank you.
Do keep in mind though, that even though this grant is so flexible, you are still supposed to be evaluating the effectiveness of the funds that you get, just like the other grants. So you will have to complete an evaluation survey every year on how did it go? Did you get a return on investment for these funds? Is it making a difference? We, along with the U.S. Department of Ed, wants to make sure that it is being used well, thought-worthy, not just tossed out there, right? Like, it really looks intentional that it is being utilized for the children. So there's an evaluation component to it, and it should be an extension of goals for other grants. So let's say one of your goals in Title I, something that's linked up with your strategic plan. Well, this goes back to if it's an extension of Title I, if it's an arm of that goal, is it helping meet a particular goal that you have in mind? Now, this grant actually has a little piece in GEMS for a little bit of a narrative about the evaluation. So not only are you doing a survey result that's coming out, but you're also having to put a little bit in the program details about the evaluation of student achievement around what you're working with. For every grant, we are to evaluate its effectiveness, right? So this one is no different. The SCDE encourages REAP recipients to evaluate objectives using data to determine the return on investment. And I did a district highlighted example. This is one that I saw to come in from the survey that we recently did, and I just wanted to give them a shout out for what they were doing down there so that you could have one in practicality and see how these funds are being utilized to help. dual enrollment. And they were tracking the data, so you can see the results. This resulted in 62%. So continuing to look at how the children are being assisted in earning college credit. Now to me, after I've read that and I get the data on who's getting REAP the next year, I go, I hope you do. Right? I see that you're really using it. It's making a difference with those students. Okay. Then I scripted out what the allocation process looks like for this grant, in case you were curious about how that process works. Like in November, U.S. Department of Ed provides us a spreadsheet that we look through. We actually provide district allocations to them for Title II and IV. They use that information when they're building REAP. So the prior year's Title II allocations and Title IV allocations are sent to the REAP office at that time of the year. We give them average daily attendance. We give them a couple of contacts for each district. That's why they're reaching out to say, hey, is this contact still valid? You might get an email from them. Then they compile all that information. They produce an allocation, and then they send it to us in a master spreadsheet. Transferring funds. Can you transfer these funds? You can. Okay. Sometimes we will have grants transfer some of their funds into REAP. I do see that. I see it less and less these days. But transferability is an option. It says Section 5103 allows an LEA to transfer local funds into any of the following programs. And then you see the ones you can transfer from and into. There is a little bit of action steps around that, like how that process is supposed to go. You can transfer all or a portion during any of the 27-month period of availability of that grant. You cannot transfer funds into Title IV unless you're a recipient of Title IV. Right? So sometimes I'll have a district say, okay, I'm going to transfer Title IV into Title V. And I say, I don't even know if you get in Title V. Like, we got to see. Right? Look, notice number 6. We are supposed to be notified not later than 30 days after the date of such a transfer. There's a 30-day window that we're supposed to be notified if you're wanting to do some transferring. I don't think I say that often enough through all the grants, but there is a 30-day window of letting us know what your intention is. And how does that happen? We have a transfer form, and it is submitted to us. We take a look at all the information on it. I sign it, send it back to you. You put it in GEMS in the related document section. This helps us keep track of the transferring money.
And that transferring, that's throughout the school year, or that's for the next school year? You can't do it during the school year.
Yeah, you can. You can do it anytime while that grant is active. Mm-hmm. I would say best practice is to decide before you start.
Correct.
Yeah, it's just best practice. Okay, what questions do you have about REAP? Anybody? It's a very simplistic grant compared to some.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
yeah.
It's the easiest one for us to review too. That one's easy.
Outside of that, I have questions that my boss wanted me to ask.
Okay, well, I will stop this recording and I'll dismiss everybody else, and then we can talk about that. All right, if you need us, feel free to call us. We're around. Thank you so much.